Hey everyone and welcome back. So as some of you know, Creepshow is one of my favorite films of all time. It's a very important film to me, and I have indeed waited, or hoped rather, for years that we would get a 4K release of it. And that day has indeed come, and in fact, here it is right here. It's a new 4K release of Creepshow from Scream Factory. And needless to say, when this arrived, which ironically was actually on Father's Day, it actually, a package that arrived not only on Sunday, but on Father's Day, which I thought was actually kind of fitting. And needless to say, the moment it came in, I was ecstatic and I dove right into it. And yeah, I definitely have some thoughts on it. So just real quick, though, before I get to the technical aspects, for those of you who don't, most of you probably know if you watch my channel, in case you stumbled across this video, Creepshow is a movie that is very, very personal to me. It's actually one of the first horror films I saw as a kid that really helped create my love of horror films and really even kind of got me much more into filmmaking as a kid. I've always loved movies and filmmaking since as far as back as I can remember, and there were a couple films very early on that really kind of helped, I think, feed that. And Creepshow for sure was one. I don't know why, for some reason, it was a film that I just sort of responded to and attached to very quickly. And to this day, I still have my VHS copy. It's not something I bought later in life. This is actually my VHS copy that I got when I was very, very young, probably a lot younger than maybe I should have been watching this, but you know, my parents are a little bit more open to certain things. And this is indeed my VHS copy from when I was a kid. I have had Creepshow on probably every format there is. Obviously going back to this VHS, and then there was, Laserdisc, obviously DVD, Blu-ray, and now we are actually up to 4K. Now, the reason why I wanted to mention this is because not only is Creepshow personal to me, but because I've sort of grown up with it on all these different formats, I've been able to really kind of get an idea of, how it looks on all these different formats over the years. And of course, one of the best releases we've gotten so far was, of course, the previous Scream Factory Blu-ray release from just a few years ago. And even at the time, I was raving about it. Luckily, pretty much all the stuff from this release has been ported over to the new one. Now, this did have one major release, which of course was one of the audio options, and I will cover that in just a moment. So as far as Creepshow goes in 4K, obviously the big question is, how does it look? How does it sound? And how are the extras? So as far as the extras go, it ports over all the extras from their previous release. I don't think there's anything new here, and I don't think there's anything missing. I think the only weird thing about the extras is that they're kind of spread out a little bit. And now for other Scream Factory releases, for example, the 4K releases that they've done, the 4K disc will pretty much have the movie and maybe like some of the commentary tracks, and that's about it. And then the included Blu-ray would have all the other extras. Now in this case, they've divided them up. So some of the interviews and stuff are on the 4K disc, and then the rest of them are on the included Blu-ray, which is an interesting choice because you have to decide depending on which extra you're going to watch, you got to flip around from one disc to the next. I mean, I kind of wish all the extras were on the 4K disc, especially since all the extras are HD. I mean, I would assume they would have been able to fit them all on 100 gigabyte disc maybe, but I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for it, but it's kind of weird that they are kind of divided up. And of course, the included Blu-ray is Region A locked. So for those of you outside of Region A and you don't have a Region Free player, you're not going to be able to access all of the extras. But at the same time, that was also one of my things about the previous Blu-ray, was the fact that all the extras were only on a single disc, where I kind of wish that they did sort of divide them up, the movie on one disc and all the extras on a second disc. And then in this new one, they sort of went a different route. So I don't know. It's interesting, but at least you're not missing any extras. You may have to kind of jump around a bit to kind of watch some of them, but at least you're not missing anything. And again, it has all the extras. It's got all the commentary tracks, all the interviews, all the behind the scenes, all of the the still galleries and everything, the deleted scenes, the trailers, and all that kind of stuff. So it's all here, and that's fantastic. Obviously, the only thing not here is the Just Desserts documentary. And honestly, I think they would have if they could. I'm guessing that just because that was something that Synapse put out. I can't fault them for that, because again, it's not like you can't get the Just Desserts documentary. Obviously you can. It's just a separate thing from Synapse. And obviously, and I do highly recommend that. If you're a fan of Creepshow at all, I definitely recommend picking up that release, because not only does it have the documentary, it actually has a lot of other stuff on it as well. So if you kind of wanted to sort of complete your Creepshow thing, I would definitely recommend picking that up. And I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon, so I'll link to it in the description below if you're considering picking it up if you haven't already. And of course, now we get to the technical aspects. So how does the film look? How does it sound? And what about the audio issue that was on the previous Blu-ray? So let's just go one by one. So as far as picture goes, so the thing is, with Creepshow being so personal to me, there are two ways you can kind of go about a release of a movie that means a lot to you. You're just happy to have it in a new release, especially on a new format. And as long as it's decent, you'll be happy. I've been that way before with certain films. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it means so much to you that you go through it with a high level of scrutiny because you're looking for because you want it to be as perfect as possible. It's not, it's never going to be perfect, but you want it to really be as close as possible to a proper presentation of the film. And indeed, for my sake, that's what I wanted, because there were some concerns that was going into it, especially based on a couple of previous Scream Factory 4K releases. And there were two things I was kind of worried about. Compression. My other concern, obviously, was the possibility of clipping, because in their Exorcist 3 4K release, of course, we had clipping in the highlights, and that really worried me. So as I was watching Creepshow, I was looking for everything. As much as I wish I could tell you that I sat there in just, pure joy as I was watching it, the fact of the matter is I was actually a little bit, I had a little bit of anxiety going, because I was looking for things, not just for the sake of the review, but even for myself. Like, I wanted this to be just like, as good of a release as possible. So I was looking for anything. I was looking for any sky that I saw, any lamp or light. I was looking like, is there clipping going on? Is there compression issues in some of the more complex things? Like, there's a lot of scenes with like fog and things like that. And also, how is the color correction? Because Michael Gornick, the cinematographer, he did sign off on the previous Blu-ray. Now, I haven't seen anything in regards to this release, because it does say that it got a new scan of the original negative for this release. It's not the same scan that was used for the Blu-ray release. So the question is, well, what about all the color correction and everything that Michael Gornick signed off on? Like, is that still here? So the question in all of these is this the exact same, as far as I can tell, is this the exact same color correction that Michael Gornick signed off on? Yes, it looked pretty much identical to the coloring that was done on the Blu-ray. So it might be a new scan, but it looks like basically they used the same timing and everything that they did for the Michael Gornick transfer, or for the Blu-ray that Michael Gornick signed off on. Now, whether or not he signed off on this one, I don't know, I must admit. If any of you guys know if he did or not, please say something in the comments. But I can tell just by looking at it that it definitely had all the same moments from the Blu-ray as far as color correction goes. As far as any clipping goes, thank God there was none. I was looking as for everything. Every sky, every lamp, everything. I was literally looking for any clipping whatsoever, and thank goodness it is not here. It's a good, solid transfer. And as far as compression goes, I mean, I know some people have a much better eye for that. Usually if it's obvious, it sticks out to me. But again, I was looking for stuff, especially again in fog, in things like grass and things like that, and I did not see any compression issues. So as far as the video goes, I can honestly say I was so happy with the way this looks. It looks amazing, and you can definitely see the 4K upgrade in the works. I mean, as far as now, if you have the older Blu-ray and you're going to the newer Blu-ray that's included, for example, which does have the newer scan on it, I didn't notice any difference. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more cleanup or something, but if you're going from Blu-ray to Blu-ray, you're not going to really notice any difference. If you're going from Blu-ray to 4K, you are going to notice a difference, because you could definitely see the 4K, with the extra detail just across the board, the very solid reproduction of color. Any issue in the picture is part of the original elements. So for example, obviously all the optical shots, they're going to look softer, they're going to look a little bit grainier, because was part of the process of when you're doing opticals, as far as doing them in a lab, is that there's a degradation of the picture. But that goes for any movie, before digital and everything. Like, that's just true of any movie anywhere. So I got to tell you, as someone who really wanted this to be as perfect as possible, I'm going to be honest, can honestly say, in my opinion, that Scream Factory definitely delivered in that. I am so happy with the way this looks, and relieved, and hopefully now that going forward I can watch it without that sense of anxiety, looking for any little thing. And as far as the audio goes, we have 3 audio options. We have the original 2.0 stereo theatrical mix. Thank goodness that's included, and that is also carried over from the previous Blu-ray release. We have a 5.1 mix, and as some of you know, the 5.1 mix on the original Blu-ray release was kind of messed up, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. And we have a brand new Dolby Atmos mix. Now the Dolby Atmos mix is the default, and then you have the 5.1, and then you have the stereo mix. I did watch it with the new Dolby Atmos mix, and then I did go back and do just a couple quick comparisons. So for those of you who don't know, the 5.1 mix that was on the original Blu-ray release, it had a weird pitch issue to it. Now, I saw some people speculate that that 5.1 mix may have been done for a UK release, and it was not properly converted to NTSC for the last Blu-ray release. So it was going from PAL to NTSC, but it was not converted properly or something along that makes sense if that's actually what happened, because it was bizarre, and I hated the fact that that was actually the default option. You had to go in and actually choose the stereo mix, which sounded great. So in this case, the Dolby Atmos mix, I was kind of worried, like, were they going to use that botch thing as the bass? And I can honestly say the Dolby Atmos mix actually sounded really good, especially for a surround mix. Now, was it Dolby Atmos-y? I didn't hear anything above me. I think it just kind of fills out some of the sound fields, especially like music and things. The music, actually, I will say, that's probably the biggest thing I noticed from the Dolby Atmos mix was I did hear a little bit more sort of details in some of the music, especially some of the library tracks that are in the film, which actually I thought was really, really cool. I did check out a couple bits from the 5.1, and I can honestly say it's not the 5.1 botch thing that was on the previous Blu-ray. Now, is it the same track, but they fixed it? Possibly. That could very well be the case. But I did not notice those pitch issues in this 5.1 mix. And of course, the stereo theatrical mix sounds great. I mean, out of the three, I prefer that original stereo mix. But the thing is, if you have a surround system and you want to use it, I do think the Dolby Atmos track is actually a really good one. So I think it's whatever mix you want to go to in this new release, I think you're going to be okay. And of course, I already mentioned all the extras, which are ported over, luckily. So as far as the picture goes, I can honestly, and thank God I'm relieved as well, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. And honestly, if you're someone like me who's just a massive fan of the film, I mean, honestly, there's really kind of no way I don't believe so that Creepshow could even look any better. I mean, in some ways it would even be like a 5 out of 5. But the thing is, I also have to take into account that it's like, well, is it a movie you're going to use to show off your 4K system or something like that? No. But as far as a solid presentation and a really amazing restoration as well, for me it easily gets a 4.5 out of 5. Now, as far as the audio goes, yeah, I mean, because they, as far as I can tell, at least fixed that surround thing, the Dolby Atmos mix is a nice mix, and it does obviously have the original stereo theatrical mix, and everything sounded good and clean across the board. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 as well. And as far as extras go, I mean, there's so much here to go through. It's like, I know, I kind of wish that Just Desserts was part of this release, but again, it is something you can pick up, so it's not like it's not available. It's sort of one of those where it's just like, as a single release, it's kind of just missing that, but there's so much here, and they talk to so many people, which is fantastic. So I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think if it had like a really nice deluxe packaging or something, even without the Just Desserts documentary, but just kind of like a really cool packaging, yeah, I probably would up it to 5. I'm not gonna lie. But I think I love everything that's here, and even there were a couple things that it was nice to kind of go back through and watch, because some of this stuff I hadn't even watched in a couple of years, some of the extras. So it was nice to kind of go back and revisit some of those. And then as far as my overall score goes, I mean, honestly, probably just stick with the same thing, a 4.5 out of 5. It's a fantastic release. I know I've had a couple qualms with a couple of Scream Factory releases lately. I've Exorcist 3 and the regional locking on people under the stairs and some stuff. But the thing is, if they do something right, it's like it's right, and in the sake of Creepshow, and I had every right to pick this apart and look for anything, and honestly, I couldn't find it. I mean, I'm sure some people out there might be able to find something. I didn't see anything. As far as I'm concerned, as someone who loves Creepshow, has so much love and affinity for the film, I am so happy on how this 4K release came out. It looks amazing. It sounds great. Again, I love all the extras. And as much as I could sit here and be like, well, I'm kind of biased towards Creepshow, yeah, but it's like at the same time, I wanted this to be as close as perfect as possible, and honestly, I think they got there. So this definitely gets a very strong recommendation from me. And I kind of feel so good that it's like, okay, so when I go to watch Creepshow in the future, I'm going to feel so good about, going back to this release. So these are my thoughts on the new 4K release of Creepshow from Scream Factory. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Try and answer them as best I can. And if you picked it up, definitely let me know your thoughts as well. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.